Was he a Levite? I don't remember. There were 3 of them. Maybe he might have been. I don't remember. There were 3 of them. Do you remember who the 3 are? We just got Korah's name here. Korah, Dathan, and Abiram, right? And they went and opposed Moses and Aaron. Shelley's going to look it up. She's going to find out if he's a Levite. They opposed them, right? And there was finally, okay, fine, let's have a challenge. And you remember it was one of those things where they brought from each tribe a branch. And they brought these branches, and God was going to prove who he was going to accept. And what happened to the branch of Aaron? It put on leaves, it budded, and I believe it even says it put on almonds, did it not? Put on fruit. Was he? Okay, I figured it was if you said it. And so the point was what? Aaron's my man. Moses is my man. Don't be disrespecting them. Don't be doing this stuff. And to prove that it was a destruction from God, what happened to these men and their families and their tents and all their stuff? The earth opened up and ate them. Swallowed them up, the text says. And again, what's the idea? They had rejected God, and God was punishing them. All right, so that's what we see here in verse 11. Woe to them, for they have gone the way of Cain, and for pay they have rushed headlong into the error of Balaam, and perished in the rebellion of Korah. Let's see if there's anything else I want to tell you here. Woe sounds like Jesus, doesn't it? You would get that. Jesus does the woe thing quite often. Matthew 23 would be an example of that. There's at least, 8 woes, I believe, in that Matthew 23. It's interesting because if they're brothers, half-brothers, you think maybe mom and dad ever said, whoa. And maybe that had stuck. I know my parents have said whoa before. And it wasn't pretty if you didn't whoa. Anyway, woe sounds like Jesus in Matthew 23. The way of Cain was a disobedience. We talked about Genesis chapter 4. You can also read about him in 1 John chapter 3, verse 12, and Hebrews chapter 11, verse 4. Error of Balaam seduced the Israelites to sin for personal gain. You read that in Numbers 22 through 25, and then the other episode that we talked about with the women, that's in chapter 3 of Numbers. Rebellion of Korah is a rebellion against divine authority. That's Numbers chapter 16 is where you would find that. Rebellion against God's authority, or rebellion against God's appointed, is rebellion against God. Numbers 26, verse 9. Again, watch how you talk, or how you talk about others. James 3, 1 through 12, 4, 11 through 12, 5, 9, Titus 3, 1 and 2. I mean, we could give like half the Bible for watch your tongue, okay? And so that's something that you know why I think he repeats it over and over? Because I need to hear it over and over. Maybe some of you do as well. All right, questions or comments through verse 11 here? Well, you are chatty folks. Okay, let's go to 12 and 13. We'll try to talk about them as we go through here and then go back and cover them all, and then we'll take questions. These are the men who are hidden reeves. Okay, so what's the idea of hidden reeves? Best way to describe it. Well, I saw a Facebook story the other day about the Kentucky Lake. And if you saw about Kentucky Lake, we lived in Western Kentucky for a while, and so we had already known this. But there's a cemetery island in Kentucky Lake. When they made it, they flooded some places, and one of those places was a cemetery. And during the wintertime, they let the water down. They lower the water. And when they lower the water, you can go to Cemetery Island, and you can actually see some of the graves there on Cemetery Island. And somebody was telling me that it's actually a boating hazard. You better know where it is, because one of the tombstones is quite way up in the water, but not enough to stick out that you can see it, but enough that if you run your boat over, it might cause you some problems. These are hidden reefs. We would think about that in the ocean. You and I don't live near the ocean. But that's these things that are right under the water that we can't see, but they can cause all kinds of destruction. That's what he refers to them as. They're hidden reefs in your love feast. So one of the things, they had potlucks back then too, okay? If you love a good potluck, well, we've been doing potluck for a long time. They had the potlucks back then, right? They had their love feast where they would come together, they would eat together. And these people are hidden reeves at their love feast, okay? When they feast with you without fear, caring for themselves, clouds without water. Okay, I think you would understand this concept as well. What are they? They're fruitless. And he uses the term of idea of clouds without water, especially over in that area from what I read on a hot day when it was dry and they needed rain. A lot of times that moisture might come off of the water and the heat of the day, and it would cause really black clouds. And when you see a black cloud in July and August, you get excited, right? Why do you get excited? Because probably it's 100 degrees outside and it hadn't rained for a couple weeks, right? And what's coming? Oh, come on, you know what's coming. Rain, right? Rain's coming. Farmers are rejoicing. They're jumping up and down, right? This is what we need. It's so hot outside. Stacy's going to get the mow, right? Because it's going to rain, right? This is exciting. And then whoosh, it blows over. You ever experienced that? I've seen some stuff like that before. You think, here it is, here it comes, right? Or maybe you're watching the weatherman. You know, he's like, it's going to rain tomorrow, and it never rains. The same idea. It looks like it's going to rain. It looks like you're going to get what you need, and you get nothing. That's what these false teachers are. They look promising. They look good, but they don't produce anything. Let's see here, back up. Clouds without water, carried along by winds, autumn trees. All right, what do you know about autumn trees? Leaves fall. Let's think about fruitful trees, like apple trees. It's that time of year, right? They do apples October, don't they? November. What do fall trees have before they lose all their leaves? Fruit, hopefully, right? If you got an apple orchard, right, what are you hoping for in the fall? You're hoping for apples in the fall. And so what does he describe these folks as? They are fall trees. You get ready to go, you get ready to pick an apple, and what? Nothing. It reminds me a little bit about Jesus. You remember the fig tree? You remember the fig tree? And this was a question when I was in school. My professor said, because the Bible says that it wasn't the season for figs, right? If you go back and read it, it wasn't the season for figs. So why would Jesus curse a fig tree for not having figs when it wasn't the season of figs? You know why he did it? Because it had leaves on it. You know what leaves mean? There's fruit. When a fig tree puts out its leaves, that means there are figs on it ready to be eaten. And so what was the tree doing? It was advertising something that it didn't have. Here's what we see here. What are these false teachers? They're autumn trees. You're ready to go pick up. You're ready to get something from them. Ready for something productive in your life, right? An apple and nothing. So they're clouds without rain. They're autumn trees without fruit. He goes on and says, doubly dead, uprooted. So he really triples down here on this tree thing, doesn't he? Not only do they not have fruit, they're doubly dead. I mean, not just dead, but doubly dead. That's a real thing, right? And not only that, they're uprooted. There's no chance of them ever getting anything else. And that's what he refers to these false teachers in this verse. He goes on and says, talking again about this idea, verse 13, wild waves of the sea. Wild waves of the sea. How so? Casting up their own shame like foam, like foam. Let's stop there. So what are they? They're like these waves. And you've all probably been to the ocean, or you've seen the ocean or whatever. And what does it do? It pushes up, and sometimes it'll have that foamy stuff, you know? And that's what these false teachers are. They're just continually showing you their shame. They're just continually putting up their shame by what they're teaching, by how they're living. Wild waves of the sea, casting up their own shame like foam. Wandering stars, for whom the black darkness has been reserved forever. And so the next reference he makes is this idea of wandering stars. What exactly does he mean? Maybe he's referencing the idea of a comet or a meteor, something to that effect. Maybe one that's moving that eventually disappears. I don't know if that's exactly what he's meaning here, but that possibly is the idea. But it's the idea that what? They're being punished. How? In darkness. What does that reference? Hell.